Hello there, comic book fans, and anyone else who might stumble across this video. I just had to get it off my chest. I had to talk about all the comic books that I've been reading, the comic books that I love. We're going to mainly focus on the stuff that I've been reading lately. We're in February of 2026. Right now, one of my favorite books is this Fantastic Four Visionaries by John Byrne. This is the end of his Fantastic Four run. So after this, he went and did Superman, Man of Steel. He did the reboot of Superman. I have another issue here. This is the one with Batman on the cover. This is a great miniseries. If you want to read Superman, this is where you start. Pick it up in a trade paperback. This was my introduction to John Byrne when I was a kid. My dad got me the trade paperback of this when I was a kid. I was a fan of the Superman movie when I was a kid, and this is my Superman. I mean, before this, I read Death of Superman, and I think I might have had like one other Superman back issue from the 70s, but this is my defining Superman. When I think of like Superman comics and comic books in general in my head, I think of John Byrne's art. He's one of my favorite comic book artists all the way. I'm really enjoying his run on Fantastic Four. I don't even really like the Fantastic Four. I'm going to be honest. Well, I guess I do. I'm lying. I do. Because I like this volume here. I like the volume before it. So this is Fantastic Four Visionaries, John Byrne, Volume 8. And this is the last volume before he left Fantastic Four, went to DC. Eventually he came back to Marvel to do West Coast Avengers, which I really like his run on West Coast Avengers. It's cool seeing him draw and write the Avengers. I mean, they're the West Coast Avengers, but you got Scarlet Witch, Vision, Hawkeye, all sorts of other Avengers characters on the team. So it's an Avengers book. It's good. And then after that, he did Namor, which compared to the West Coast Avengers was definitely a downgrade in quality. I only read the first 12 issues, and I don't really plan to continue reading his run on Namor after that, but these are great. I definitely want more of his run on Fantastic Four. This is all my comic shop had left was volume 7 and 8, so I read basically the end of his run. Actually, I'm still in the process of reading this. So there's a couple more issues in this I have to read, but I just love this. I love the way his art looks. You know, people say around this time is when his art started to degrade in quality. Maybe that's the case. Maybe it's not as good as, you know, some of the stuff he did. I really like this page. Maybe this isn't as high quality and memorable as his work on X-Men. These are some good John Byrne trade paperbacks, guys. If you don't have these two, if you want to read X-Men, boom, get this. Dark Phoenix Saga. I know there's some stuff before this. Those giant size X-Men. There's some stuff leading up to this. My first John Byrne X-Men was Days of Future Past. Because the movie was awesome. The movie was one of the best X-Men movies. It was like the best X-Men movie that came out since X2, X-Men United. I didn't even see it when it came out in theaters. At that time, when Days of Future Past, the movie came out, I didn't care about comic books. I was in high school. I'd kind of like grown out of comic books. I would still go see the occasional comic book movie, but a lot of comic book movies come out. I wouldn't go see every single one that came out. So I watched this later on demand. And of course, as a kid, I was a fan of the X-Men TV show. And I remember there was a Days of Future Past episode of the X-Men TV show. Now, that had like Bishop and Cable in it. So I always kind of thought of Days of Future Past. I thought maybe it came from the 90s and it had Bishop and Cable in it. But that's just how the 90s TV show did X-Men Days of Future Past. This is great. This is an iconic cover. You know, I've seen this like tributed a bunch of times. You know, since my childhood, I always saw this iconic cover, tributed. This isn't a horrible place to start for X-Men. But if you want, you can get this one first. I read this, and then I went to the library, and I read this. And there's some stuff that happened before this, but I knew who you don't need to... Oh, this edition is much newer than this one. This is like a 2014 paperback, and this is like a 2024 paperback. The age difference, but I love these. I love these John Byrne paperbacks. These are awesome. Must read stuff, guys. This one I still haven't really gotten into. My local comic shop had this. I was like, okay, John Byrne, I'm in. It's not written by John Byrne, though. It's Roger Stern with John Byrne. I kind of prefer John Byrne when he's writing his own stuff, or when he has Claremont writing for him. Speaking of Byrne and Claremont, I was reading this today. I was reading their run on Iron Fist. I have the Iron Fist Essential, which is the black and white volumes, and that is just awesome. I mean, it starts off the John Byrne run, Iron Fist issue 1. You get some stuff before that. You get the Marvel premiere issues. But issue 1 of Iron Fist, he fights Iron Man. And then I was reading it and enjoying it. And then as the series got on, like issue 8, it starts to get, the art is really good. John Byrne is just one of the greatest comic artists of all time. He's on my top 10, probably top 5 list. And maybe part of that is nostalgia, because I grew up with his run on Superman. And I also had the Green Lantern Ganthet's Tale as a kid. So I was reading this guy's comics. I didn't even know those two comics were drawn by the same guy. I wasn't paying attention to who drew the comics. They were my comics, and they instilled in me that, like, this is how these characters look. John Byrne Superman, John Byrne Batman, John Byrne Green Lantern, John Byrne Bizarro, John Byrne Lois Lane. And then when I see him draw the Marvel Universe characters, I'm like, yes, this looks right. He got me to really enjoy some Fantastic Four books, even though I don't really gravitate towards Fantastic Four. When I got back into comic books, I was just reading the X-Men a couple years ago when, not quite 2 years ago, like approaching 2 years ago, I think around April of 2024, X-Men 97 released, and I didn't even bother watching it, but my older brother told me, like, hey, you gotta watch it. There was a spoiler, and I don't want it to get ruined for you, and I think you would like it. Just watch it. I watched it, and it reminded me, I was like, oh my gosh, I love the X-Men. I love these characters. I grew up with these characters. I love Wolverine. I love Gambit. I love Nightcrawler. I love Rogue. I love Storm. I love Jean Grey. I love Cyclops. I grew up with these characters. I grew up watching the cartoon. I grew up watching the Hugh Jackman movies. I would see them in theaters when they'd come out. I just want to say, growing up as someone who was born in the late 90s, and my earliest memories are the early 2000s, I remember going to see all these movies. I remember going to see X-Men and X-Men 2 and Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 and 3 and the original Incredible Hulk movie from 2003. What an era. What an era to grow up as a fan of superheroes. I got to see the boom of superhero movies. I mean, you think it would be the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it was the early 2000s, the Wolverine, the X-Men movies, and the Spider-Man movies that paved the way for Iron Man. 2008, you had Iron Man, The Dark Knight, Hulk, all come out in the same year. And that really started a new era of comic book movies, the MCU era. and the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy. Batman Begins, I feel like when that came out, that kind of went under the radar, or at least I didn't like it as a kid. I didn't see it in theaters. I think I saw it on like a hotel TV, so maybe that kind of ruined it. But it also didn't have any of the big marquee villains. Like you didn't have a Joker, a Penguin, a Catwoman, a Two-Face, or even a Mr. Freeze. You didn't have any of those big villains that kids know and love. It was like Ra's al Ghul and Scarecrow's actually kind of cool, but it didn't really look like the Scarecrow that a kid would recognize. So I thought Batman Begins was boring when I was a kid. And later on, when I was an adult, I watched it and I was like, oh, this is actually one of the best Batman movies. I think Michael Keaton will always be on top, but maybe that's just nostalgia for me because I grew up watching that on VHS tape. But, if we're being technical, I guess Batman Begins and The Dark Knight are probably have to be the best Batman movies. They're probably the best well-made movies, but the original Michael Keaton, Tim Burton Batman movie feels like a comic book. You have that scene where the Joker falls into the vat of acid and his hand is coming out of the acid. That's so comic booky. There's so much in that movie that is comic booky, and that's why I like it. I like it when they're not ashamed to be comic booky. Like, let's not forget where we came from. So yeah, this is great. I'm loving this. I'm loving the art in this. This is a joy to read. This makes me want to get some more of John Byrne's Fantastic Four run. I also have this Galactus one this came out last summer to promote the Fantastic Four movie, which was kind of there's some stuff in it that looked cool. It had some cool imagery. This is some cool cinematography. But overall, it kind of felt flat. I think Superman was the better movie. And I think a big part of why I liked Superman is that there was like a small little Justice League in it. You had Mr. Terrific. You had Green Lantern. The first time you really get a good representation of a Green Lantern on screen. And Mr. Terrific was badass. I didn't even know who Mr. Terrific was until I saw the movie. I don't think many of us didn't really know who that guy was, but I like him now. And then I bought the first issue of Mr. Terrific Year One, which was a miniseries they came out with to around the same time as the movie. And the art just was not, did not cut it for me. I should have flipped through it. I wanted to be old school. I just grabbed it off the rack and went in blind. I guess don't do that. But, yeah, we get John Byrne's Galactus trilogy in here. And we get Jack Kirby's Galactus trilogy. I think I like John Byrne's Fantastic Four more. Is that sacrilegious? I've read the first few issues of Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four. I've read the Galactus books and the Silver Surfer. I have this Essential. Look at this back cover. You get to see Jack Kirby draw Daredevil and Thor. I mean, he draws Thor a lot. Spider-Man. This one, I get bored reading this. I mean, maybe it's because it's in black and white. But I know that's not the case because I read this by Jack Kirby. New Gods. This is in black and white. I love this. This is awesome. So I went and I got this other one from the same black and white series. The only one, there's 3 of these. The only one I'm missing is the Mr. Miracle one. So gotta get that. I'm not in a rush to get that. I'll get it eventually. I think I just like the 70s era of Jack Kirby much more than the 1960s Stan Lee era of Jack Kirby. Like his stuff on New Gods, these issues of Commandi. I found these at Half Price Books. These are awesome. These are so awesome. Oh my gosh. So awesome that I had to run out and I went to my LCS, my local comic book store, Alternate Reality Comics, Chicago, 111th and Kedzie. Support your local comic book store if you live in Chicago. Support Alternate Reality. I got this from off the shelf. This is volume 1. There's 2 volumes of the Jack Kirby Commandi. I haven't really gotten around to this. I have a lot of stuff on my backlog to read. Not as much as some other people. Like, I look at my shelf of trade paperbacks. I've got like one shelf. Trade paperbacks lined up. I've read a lot of them. There's a stack of them that I haven't read, or I've only read a couple of the issues. But this, I don't enjoy reading this in this. First of all, this is a big. I don't like these big trade paperbacks. I like these nice digestible trade paperbacks, nice and thin, like this. I mean, I do like these Marvel Essentials. These are big. I like these. I think it's because it's on newsprint paper, and these are light, and they're cheap. You find these for cheap. I got this from my LCS as well, my local comic book store. This was sitting on the shelf. He doesn't really sell, I don't think he sells used trade paperbacks, so I think this was sitting on the shelf since 2001 is the copyright. I'm pretty sure it's been sitting on the shelf that whole time since I was a kid. I used to go to that comic shop when I was a kid. And I still go there. Still the same guy there selling me comics. He sold me my first Jim Lee comic, X-Men issue 1. I wasn't there when that came out. It was a back issue. Sold me my first Todd McFarlane comic. Sold me all my comics when I was a kid. And I still buy comics from him today. There's something kind of special about that. Won't be here forever, so you got to appreciate these places and these people, because not everything lasts forever. But yeah, I like. I don't like these big. This one I like because I like the paper this is on, but I don't know. I'll get through, and also it feels like, I got to read all this. I don't know. I mean, I like reading comics, but when your backlog of comics becomes too large, it can start to feel like homework. And I see people like, oh man, my backlog, and I keep buying comics. I'm like, I've slowed down. I still buy comics. This is the only one I have on my pull list is Rob Liefeld's Youngblood. So I'm getting this every month. I'll get the last issue of Hush when it comes out. I think I've added a new comic to my pull list. I went to the comic shop on Wednesday and I grabbed Superman vs. the Amazing Spider-Man. This came out a little while ago. Dude, this back cover. Come on, dude. Are you kidding me? My 2 childhood heroes right here. Spider-Man and Superman in one book. I mean, if you told me this was a thing when I was a kid, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have been like, no. Superman is DC and Marvel, Spider-Man is Marvel. Okay, sorry, my camera ran out of memory. My phone. I'm recording this on my phone. I was talking about this, the Superman versus Spider-Man. Went to the comic book store to pick this up because I realized that this came out earlier in the year. I think this came out in January. I forgot to pick it up because this is in like a separate tucked away section of the comic shop. I'd been meaning to pick this up because I heard Rob Liefeld speak favorably about it. And when Uncle Rob talks about a book and speaks favorably on it, every time I go check out an artist or a book that he recommends, it ends up being good. Some of you YouTubers out here recommend comics and I'll pick them up and I'm just like, this isn't good. So I can't listen to YouTubers about comic books because I don't think their standards are very high. And I think that's why it took me such a long time to check out Absolute Batman. This is the 10th reprint of Absolute Batman. I showed this on my pickups video showing the Wednesday comic book haul. I picked this up. Wasn't really crazy about the first issue. I mean, this cover is iconic at this point. This is iconic. I think his design is really good. But really, I just picked this up because I saw it. I saw it had the iconic original cover. They just colored this red instead. I think the original one's yellow. So I get the iconic cover for the first one. Maybe I'll end up continuing on with this. But I mainly got this because I wanted to read this. This is the reprint of the Absolute Batman Annual. And I saw both these next to each other. I was like, I might as well grab issue 1. Get a little bit of I mean, this I think I could have just jumped in on. I figure why not get a little bit of background on Absolute Batman, see if it tickles my fancy. I liked it well enough, but this didn't make me want to run out and buy the rest of the issues. But this Annual by Daniel Warren Johnson makes me want to go buy more Daniel Warren Johnson books. And speaking of Rob Liefeld earlier, I talked about this in my last video, but I got this Annual because of this awesome Youngblood cover. Like, this is awesome. Shaft from Youngblood. This is, like, so sick. And this cover's awesome. I usually don't like foil covers, but this one showing the fire is just... It's just awesome, guys. Hold on. Really like this issue. So, reading these Absolute Batman comics didn't make me want to buy more Absolute Batman. It makes me want to buy more Daniel Warren Johnson. So, I think I'm going to have to check out his run on Transformers. And I think I'll have to check out that Wonder Woman book that he did. But besides, now that's from last week, the stuff I picked up recently, I only got one new comic this Wednesday, and it was G.I. Joe. I like this black and white cover. There is a color version of the cover, but I like black and white. I showed you how I read those Marvel Essentials books. I like the way black and white looks. Sometimes black and white looks better. Sometimes these comics look better with their color. Sometimes they look better in black and white. This is such an awesome cover. I like how Snake Eyes is on the cover. He's not even in the comic. I'm not a big G.I. Joe guy. I only have one other G.I. Joe comic, and it's this iconic cover. This is the G.I. Joe comic that it doesn't have any words in it. No dialogue at all. It's all visual storytelling. And it is just absolutely fantastic. This is a really cool comic drawn by Larry Hama, plot by Larry Hama, who is still the writer of G.I. Joe to this very day. So this is G.I. Joe issue 21. And now we got the same guy who wrote these old issues doing the new one. These are the only two G.I. Joe books I have. But I'm going to be picking up... I like this issue of G.I. Joe. The cover looked cool. I like Larry Hama. I like his work on Wolverine. This is amazing. This is... I mean, I initially was checking this out for the great... not Larry Hama, the great Mark Silvestri art. I mean, Mark Silvestri, another guy who Rob Liefeld speaks very favorably on. And because Uncle Rob was talking about him, I went and I picked up some of those Inferno issues drawn by Mark Silvestri. Beautiful art. And I picked up this Essential. I'm so glad I did. The first like half of this is Mark Silvestri, and then the second half, there's some other people like mixed in there. But the second half is Mark Teixeira, who's one of my best friend Alex. That's his favorite Wolverine artist. I think he has all the Mark Teixeira issues. I think I have a majority of them in this. So yeah, Larry Hama did a good job writing this. I mean, really, I am in on this for the awesome Mark Silvestri art. But I mean, the writing is good too. I'm familiar with the writing style. This is a good issue of G.I. Joe, good action. I'm buying G.I. Joe every month. I don't think I'm going to add it to my pull list. I think I'm just going to go on Wednesday and see, what variant, because, they got all these variant covers. I'm just going to go see what variant cover stands out to me. They had plenty of it this Wednesday. I went at like 2 in the afternoon, and they had plenty of these. I saw pretty much all the covers on the shelf, so I don't think I need to put this on my pull list. I would like to put it on my pull list because currently all I have on my pull list is Youngblood. And I see these guys who have these like big pull lists. I'm like, I don't want to read all these modern comics. I just got back into comics a couple of years ago. I got some catching up to do with the old stuff, okay? I've been reading Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. This is fantastic. This is, look at this stuff. Look at this. This is 1967, 1968, 1969. These were coming out. Psychedelic art in here. I mean, just flipping to random pages. This guy was ahead of his time. This guy, I mean, I love this stuff. You can see the Jack Kirby influence, but he was doing his own thing, and this has been one of my favorite comics. It makes me a little bit sad that there's only so many Jim Steranko Marvel books out there. I read his work on X-Men. He did a couple issues of X-Men. He did that really cool X-Men cover with like the bald guy. You X-Men heads know the one I'm talking about. And he also drew a couple interiors for X-Men back in the 60s after the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby era of X-Men. And he also did some issues of Captain America collected here in this Captain America Essential. I got this from Half Price Books. This was $11, this Essential. You can probably find it for even cheaper. I've seen it for $10. You can probably get it for even less than that. I got this just to check out the Jim Steranko issues. This was kind of my intro. This and the X-Men Essential, X-Men Volume 2, which I did get rid of because it was kind of damaged. And I only got it for those two or three Jim Steranko issues. So I got rid of it just to make room on my shelf. I would like his X-Men issues maybe in a different collected format or maybe just a better condition Essential book. But I'm glad I have his stuff on Captain America. I'm glad I have his Nick Fury stuff. This is in color, and this is the stuff you really want in color because it's psychedelic. This is a little bit expensive, $55. And this printing is from 2009. So it was sitting on the shelf for a while. So $55, that's a bite. But nowadays, comic books are $5. So you go with a stack of comics easily over $50 nowadays if you get like a decent stack of comics. So I'd rather get total classic comics like this than read the new crap that's coming out today. I mean, I know there's good stuff. That Absolute Batman stuff is good. Youngblood's good. And I know there's other good comics out there, but I got to catch up on this stuff, man. I got to catch up on the absolute classic. These are I heard about these stories when I was a kid and I was learning about the history of comics. There was a History Channel documentary called Comic Book Superheroes Unmasked. And that was from 2003. When I was a kid, my dad taped that for me because he knew I loved comic books. I loved superheroes. He knew I loved Spider-Man and the X-Men and Superman and Batman and the Hulk. And Jim Steranko is all over that documentary. He tells the history of comic books. It goes over this stuff. So I learned about these comics at a very young age. But only now that I'm older do I get to go and buy these Marvel Masterworks, and I get to go buy these back issues. I also read this a little while ago. That's I kind of read. I finished this a little while ago because I've been loving. I've been on a little bit of a Rob Liefeld kick, you know, reading the new Youngblood, going back and reading some of the older stuff. This was my introduction to Rob Liefeld. I have a soft spot in my heart for Rob Liefeld. I know I said this on my other video with the Cable card in there. I have a soft spot in my heart for Cable. When I was a kid, I had a 10-inch Cable action figure from X-Men the Animated Series. It was my older brother's. Like, I didn't even buy that. That wasn't even bought for me. That was just in my childhood. That was always there. I came out of the womb, and there was a Cable toy, and a Mr. Sinister toy, and X-Men the Animated Series, and X-Men the movie. Like, one of my first memories of going to the theater is seeing X-Men the movie. Like, I don't remember learning about Wolverine and Cyclops and Gambit and Rogue and Jean. I don't remember learning who these characters were. They just always were. You know what I mean? Like, this is just part of, I grew up alongside these characters, man. But this was my introduction to Rob Liefeld. So I like, you know, certain creators, I want to check out more of their stuff. So I went back to his, kind of where he got his start at DC, Hawk and Dove. I didn't really know who these guys were until I saw them in the Titans TV show, which I did not finish, but I watched a few episodes with my brother. So I already kind of knew who these two were. But this is a really thin paperback. This is just a 5-issue miniseries. I recommend picking this up. DC has been keeping this in print since like 1993. It's kind of always been a part of their catalog. Man, Rob's art looks great. Barbara and Carl Kiesel are the writers. Rob Liefeld is the penciler. And Carl Kiesel is the inker. Carl did a good job finishing over Rob Liefeld's stuff, you know. And the writing here is good. The characters are... I like these characters. I like the dynamic of these characters. They have personality. But then you also get, you know, Rob Liefeld, big machine gun guys, and all that stuff. That stuff we love. This was a good read. I'm going to recommend Hawk and Dove if you guys get a chance to read it. I'm looking for a certain page now. Hold on. Oh, this is good. I really liked Hawk and Dove. Oh, here it is. This is what I was looking for. This feels like the precursor to Cable, you know, or like his X-Force stuff, the big machine gun stuff. So anyway, I'm going to end it off. I've been blabbing a long time about comic books. This is the stuff I've been reading. Really love that John Byrne Fantastic Four. I think I'm going to continue to read that after this and still make my way through this Nick Fury book. Absolutely awesome. Big shout out to Jim Steranko. Read comics. Now I am going to be buying this G.I. Joe book every month. I'm glad I have a new comic, a new comic to buy every month besides just the Youngbloods. And then I don't really need to buy more new comics because I got all this history of comic books to read. I got all these Jack Kirby comics, all this John Byrne, all this Frank Miller. I've read all Frank Miller's Daredevil and most of his other stuff, but all this other great stuff. So yeah, just keep reading comics. Read the good comics. Read Frank Miller's Daredevil. Read Jim Steranko. Read Mark Silvestri. And enjoy. Keep reading comics. God bless you. Have a good day, night, whatever time it is. Go in peace.